There is a moment, somewhere in the middle of an open field in the pre-dawn dark, when a brown hare sits completely still and the entire world holds its breath with it. The hare has heard something. It does not know exactly what yet. The ears, which are not just ears but the most sophisticated directional sound-gathering instruments in the mammal world at this scale, are rotating independently, each one sweeping a different arc of the surrounding darkness, triangulating, measuring, sorting through the layers of ambient sound for the one frequency that means everything has changed. The wind in the grass, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of a tree, all of that is filed and dismissed in fractions of a second. And then there is the one sound that is not filed and dismissed, the one sound that causes every single muscle in that compact, trembling body to load like a spring. And then the hare runs. What happens in the next 5 minutes is one of the most intense, most precisely calibrated, most biologically extraordinary sequences of events that plays out in the natural world. It involves a predator that can see further than you can imagine and fly faster than your car travels on a country road. It involves a prey animal that has been shaped by millions of years of exactly this scenario into something that is, in its own way, just as extraordinary as what is chasing it. And it involves a landscape that is not passive scenery but an active participant in a life and death calculation that is being run simultaneously by two minds, one of which is airborne and one of which is 4 inches from the ground and moving at 35 miles per hour through vegetation it cannot see over. Subscribe right now if you want to understand the natural world the way it actually works, not the cleaned-up, slow-motion version, but the real thing, the desperate thing, the version where the stakes are absolute and every fraction of a second matters. Let us go. The hare we are going to follow today is a European brown hare, Lepus europaeus, and before we put it in that field and set the clock running, we need to understand what it actually is. Because most people look at a hare and see a large rabbit. They see something soft and fast and generally harmless, something that exists in children's stories and Easter imagery and vaguely in fields. And that understanding, while not wrong exactly, misses almost everything that makes this animal remarkable. A brown hare is not a rabbit with longer legs. It is a completely different evolutionary solution to the problem of being a small herbivore in a world full of things that want to eat you. And the solution it arrived at is so different from the rabbit's solution that the two animals, despite looking superficially similar, have almost nothing in common in terms of how they live. Rabbits dig burrows. They live underground. They hide. When threatened, they go down into the earth, into darkness and narrow passages that large predators cannot follow. The rabbit's primary survival strategy is concealment and retreat into a protected space. The hare has no burrow. The hare has no protected space. The hare sleeps in a shallow depression in the ground called a form, which is simply a patch of flat vegetation in which the hare has arranged itself to minimize its visible profile. The form offers no protection. It offers only concealment. And when concealment fails, when something finds the hare in its form or stumbles upon it in the open, the hare has exactly one strategy available to it: it runs. Everything about the brown hare, every piece of its biology, every behavioral adaptation, every anatomical feature is oriented around that single fact. When things go wrong, you run, and you had better be the most extraordinary runner that has ever existed in your weight class, because there is nothing else to fall back on. The legs of a brown hare are built differently from the legs of a rabbit in ways that reflect this fundamental difference in strategy. The hind legs are disproportionately long and muscled, more so than in any rabbit species, and the ratio of hind limb to body length is calibrated for one thing above all others, which is acceleration. Not just top speed, though top speed is extraordinary, but the rate at which the hare can go from sitting still to moving at full velocity. The muscles that drive the hind limb extension in a sprinting hare are operating at close to their maximum contraction velocity during the initial phase of a chase, and the elastic tendons in those legs store and release energy during each stride cycle with an efficiency that means the hare is essentially running partly on stored elastic energy, like a biological spring system that recharges with every footfall. The spine of the hare contributes to this. When a hare runs at full speed, the spine flexes and extends with each stride in a way that effectively lengthens the stride beyond what the legs alone could produce. The hare's back curves dramatically, compressing as the hind legs tuck forward, then extending powerfully as they push off, so that the whole body is participating in the locomotion, not just the legs. This is the same principle that makes the cheetah fast, the same principle that gives greyhounds their extraordinary ground-covering stride, and in the hare it produces speeds that are genuinely startling in an animal that weighs between 3 and 5 kilograms. A healthy adult brown hare can reach speeds of approximately 60 to 70 kilometers per hour at full sprint on flat ground. To put that in context, Usain Bolt's peak speed during his world record 100-meter sprint was approximately 44 kilometers per hour, and he is the fastest human being who has ever lived. The hare would leave him behind with apparent ease, and the hare would do this after sitting motionless in a field, having spent no time warming up, having eaten nothing but grass. The hare's top speed is a product of millions of years of selection pressure from predators that were fast enough to make anything slower than 60 kilometers per hour a genetic dead end. But speed alone is not what makes the hare extraordinary as an escape artist, because speed alone would be enough to escape a fox, which tops out at around 50 kilometers per hour on its best day, but it is not enough to escape a peregrine falcon in a stoop, which can exceed 300 kilometers per hour in a dive, or a golden eagle cruising at 80 kilometers per hour with the ceiling of the sky and the geometry of the whole landscape laid out below it. Against aerial predators, speed in a straight line is not a survival strategy. It is a death sentence, because any predator that can fly simply climbs above you, calculates where you will be in 2 seconds at your current speed and heading, and hits that point. Straight line speed removes one variable from the predator's calculation and leaves only distance and timing. The predator is very good at distance and timing. This is why the hare does not run in a straight line. The jinking behavior of a fleeing hare, the sudden, violent direction changes that happen without any apparent reduction in speed, is one of the most studied and least fully understood behaviors in predator-prey biology, and it is worth spending some time with it because it is genuinely extraordinary. When a hare is being chased, it does not simply run away. It runs, and then at seemingly random intervals it executes a lateral turn of anywhere from 30 to 130 degrees, sometimes more, changing direction almost instantaneously. The physics of this maneuver are remarkable. The hare is moving at 60 kilometers per hour. At that speed, a turn of 90 degrees would, in a rigid mechanical system, require the animal to decelerate significantly before turning, because the centripetal forces involved in a tight turn at high speed are enormous. The hare does not decelerate significantly. It uses the same hind leg extension system that drives its forward acceleration to push laterally, combined with the flexibility of its spine and the coordination of its forelimbs as landing gear after the turn, to redirect its momentum at close to full speed. The energy cost of this is enormous. Each jink is a massive expenditure of anaerobic energy. The hare cannot do this indefinitely, but indefinitely is not what the hare needs. What the hare needs is to introduce enough unpredictability into its trajectory that an airborne predator cannot lock onto a predictable future position. And this is where it gets interesting, because the timing and direction of the hare's jinks are not random in the colloquial sense. They cannot be random in the colloquial sense because truly random jinks would sometimes, by chance, turn the hare directly toward the predator or along a path that makes the predator's interception easier. The hare's jinks are random in the technical, mathematical sense, which is to say they are produced by a neural system that prevents the predator from detecting any pattern in timing or direction that could be used to predict the next movement. Think about what this means. The hare has evolved a decision-making system that is specifically optimized to be unpredictable. Not to a human observer, not to a computer, but to a raptor brain that is itself one of the most sophisticated tracking and prediction systems in the animal kingdom. The falcon's brain is running a real-time predictive model of the hare's position half a second from now, and the hare's brain is running a movement generation system specifically tuned to defeat predictive models. This is an arms race between two neural architectures, prey and predator locked in an evolutionary dialogue that has been running for millions of years. Each improvement in the falcon's prediction system matched by an improvement in the hare's unpredictability, neither ever winning permanently, both locked in a dynamic equilibrium that is maintained precisely because the stakes are mortal on both sides. The hare we are following today is a young adult, maybe 18 months old, a male, and he is in a field in the upland margins of European farmland in the kind of mixed agricultural landscape that brown hares have occupied for thousands of years. This is important context. Brown hares are not forest animals, they are not mountain animals, they are fundamentally animals of open ground. They evolved in the steppe and semi-arid grasslands of Central Asia and spread westward as human agriculture opened up the European landscape over the past several thousand years. The cleared fields and pastures and meadows of agricultural Europe suit them perfectly because this is terrain that matches the habitat they evolved in, open ground with long sight lines and room to run. The hare does not want cover, it wants space. But space cuts both ways. In forests, sightlines are short and a hare in dense undergrowth is difficult to spot from above. In open farmland, a hare is visible to any bird of prey with altitude on its side, and birds of prey are very good at getting altitude on their side. The same open ground that gives the hare room to run gives the raptor the ability to see it from half a mile up. This is the fundamental paradox of the hare's life. Its habitat is both its greatest advantage and its greatest vulnerability. It can run here, it can also be seen here, and both of those things are true all the time, every day. The morning is early. The sky is the color of pewter lightening slowly toward silver in the east. The field is a winter cereal field, wheat or barley stubble from last year's harvest not yet plowed in, and the hare has been feeding in the margins, taking grass and any green shoots available along the hedgerow edge. He is aware of the sky. Hares are always aware of the sky. The position of birds overhead is a constant background calculation in the hare's sensory system, so automatic and continuous that it is not even the right language to call it conscious. It is more like breathing. The sky is monitored the way the lungs inflate without deliberate attention, continuously and involuntarily. The eyes of the brown hare are positioned high on the sides of the skull, and this is another one of those anatomical features that seems unremarkable until you understand what it actually does. The placement of the eyes gives the hare a visual field of approximately 360 degrees, not approximately, almost exactly 360 degrees. The hare can see, without moving its head, everything in the entire sphere surrounding its body except for a narrow blind spot directly behind its head and a small area directly in front of its nose. This means that while the hare is looking forward at the grass it is eating, it is simultaneously watching the sky behind it, the hedgerow to its left, the open field to its right, and the sky above it. It is watching all of these things at the same time, not switching attention between them. Simultaneously processing the entire visual field. The trade-off for this extraordinary panoramic vision is that the hare does not have particularly good binocular vision. The overlap zone between the two visual fields, which is the region of binocular vision where depth perception is possible, is a narrow strip directly in front of the hare's nose. This is fine for a grazing animal that needs to monitor the whole sphere for threats. It is less fine for detailed close-range tasks, but detailed close-range tasks are not what the hare needs to do. The hare needs to see the hawk before the hawk commits to the stoop, and for that, the panoramic system is incomparably superior. The ears complete the picture. Each ear is approximately 10 centimeters long and operates independently, rotatable through roughly 270 degrees on its own axis. The hare can point one ear forward and one ear back simultaneously, monitoring two different sectors of the sound environment at once. The auditory sensitivity of brown hares is extraordinary, calibrated to the frequencies that matter most: the wing beats of large raptors, the footfall of approaching foxes, the displacement of air that precedes a diving bird. There are sounds the hare hears that exist to a human observer in silence. The world the hare inhabits sonically is layered and detailed in ways we cannot directly access. And most of what the hare knows about the safety or danger of its immediate environment, it knows through its ears before it knows it through any other sense. Our hare is feeding and the morning is getting lighter, and there is a moment of stillness in which nothing unusual is happening, and then there is something in the air. Not a sound exactly, a pressure, an absence of a sound that should be there. The small birds that had been making background noise in the hedgerow have gone quiet abruptly and completely, and the hare's nervous system registers this before the hare's conscious processing, such as it is, has formed any response to it. The body begins to load before the mind, such as it is, has decided anything. The hind legs shift, the weight redistributes. The ears lock into parallel forward orientation, which is the hare's focused threat assessment posture, and the eyes that were monitoring the full sphere begin to assign priority to specific vectors. 40 meters above and 300 meters to the northwest, a male hen harrier is hunting. He has been quartering the field for the past 8 minutes, flying low, passes back and forth across the stubble, riding on wings held in a shallow V, the dihedral that is the harrier's signature silhouette. The harrier hunts differently from a peregrine. Where the peregrine climbs to altitude and stoops from above in a committed high-speed dive, the harrier hunts by persistence and surprise, flying low and slow and using the curvature of the earth and the hedgerows and the field edges as concealment, trying to come over a rise or around a corner before its prey has time to respond. The harrier is not the fastest raptor. It does not need to be. Its strategy is not speed at the moment of commitment. Its strategy is surprise before the prey has loaded for escape. If the harrier can get close enough before the prey detects it, the prey will not have time to reach top speed before the harrier is on it. The hare has detected it. Not with certainty yet. The harrier is still at the edge of the hare's reliable threat detection range, which, for an aerial predator flying at low altitude, is somewhere around 200 to 300 meters under these light conditions. But the silence of the hedgerow birds is a stronger signal than direct visual detection of the harrier would be. because the small birds, with their own extraordinary visual acuity and their community alarm response, detected the harrier before the hare did, and their silence is a broadcast signal that carries the alarm faster than any individual animal's direct perception. This is one of the underappreciated aspects of predator-prey dynamics in complex ecosystems. The hare does not need to see the hawk itself. The hare monitors the behavior of other species that see the hawk and uses their alarm responses as a real-time threat map of the surrounding environment. The hedgerow birds are a distributed surveillance system that the hare reads as fluently as it reads the direct inputs of its own senses. The hare freezes. This is the first response, and it seems counterintuitive given everything we have said about the hare being a runner, but it makes complete sense in the context of the harrier's hunting strategy. The harrier is hunting by movement. It is looking for the disturbance of vegetation, the flicker of an ear. The running figure that displaces the air in a way that the harrier's acute senses can lock onto. A perfectly still hare on broken ground is genuinely difficult to detect visually from the air, because the brown hare's coat is an extraordinarily effective camouflage against the colors of agricultural ground in winter. The tawny brown and tan and black-tipped fur pattern breaks up the outline of the body in a way that fools the eye at all but the closest ranges, particularly when the eye is moving at the speed of a flying harrier and scanning a large area of ground. Freezing is the correct response here. If the harrier has not yet fixed on the hare's location, moving will give it away. Stillness may make the hare functionally invisible. This is not a decision the hare makes by weighing options and selecting the optimal strategy. This is a behavioral cascade that was built into the hare's nervous system by millions of years of natural selection. Every hare ancestor that moved when it should have frozen got eaten. Every hare ancestor that froze when it should have run got eaten. The ones that survived were the ones whose nervous systems correctly read the threat level and selected the appropriate response at each moment of a dynamic encounter. And those neural patterns were passed to their offspring and refined across generations, until what remains today is a system of threat assessment and response selection that is, within its specific domain, one of the most finely calibrated decision-making systems in the animal kingdom. The harrier has seen the hare, not with certainty yet, not in the way that triggers a committed attack, but the harrier has processed a patch of ground that presented a slightly different visual texture from its neighbors, and the harrier's brain has flagged that patch is requiring a second look. The harrier adjusts its course, still flying the low quartering pattern, but now the pattern is curving back toward the area where the hare is frozen in its form. The harrier is checking, and the harrier is getting closer. The hare's threshold for committing to a run is not fixed. It is dynamic, varying with the predator's distance, speed, direction, and the quality of escape routes available. At 300 meters, freezing is better than running because running reveals position and wastes energy that will be needed later. At 150 meters, running may be better than freezing because the predator is close enough that continued stillness cannot prevent detection, but the hare still has enough head start to use its speed advantage. At 70 meters, the calculus changes again because the harrier, which has now fixed on the hare with certainty, will be closing the distance faster than the hare can accelerate, and the geometry of the interception is becoming dangerous. The harrier is at 100 meters and closing and has shifted from a quartering pattern to a direct approach, and the hare explodes from its form. The acceleration in the first 3 strides is everything. The hare goes from 0 to approximately 40 kilometers per hour in those 3 strides, which is a rate of acceleration that is genuinely impressive for any animal of any size. The anaerobic energy systems are fully committed immediately. The heart rate, which was already elevated from the threat assessment phase, spikes toward its maximum, which in a brown hare under maximum exertion can exceed 300 beats per minute. The respiratory system throws open. Everything that is not locomotion becomes secondary. The digestive system can wait. The immune system can wait. Everything can wait. Right now, the only biology that matters is getting the body from here to somewhere else as fast as physics permits. The harrier commits to its stoop. Not the near-vertical plunge of the peregrine, but the harrier's characteristic low-angle acceleration, wings pulled back, tail fan for control, closing at perhaps 60 to 70 kilometers per hour toward the position where it expects the hare to be. The key word is expects. The hare is already somewhere else. The first jink comes 40 meters into the run, a left-to-right displacement of approximately 2 meters executed in less than a quarter of a second. The harrier has to correct, banking right and losing altitude energy in the process. The hare is now on a new heading. The harrier recalculates. The hare is 70 meters from the hedgerow on the far side of the field. The hedgerow matters. The hedgerow is not just a boundary, it is a threshold. On the open ground of the field, the hare's speed advantage matters, but the harrier's aerial perspective lets it see and correct for direction changes more easily. At the hedgerow and beyond, in the thicker cover of the hedge and the field margins on the other side, the geometry of pursuit changes dramatically in the hare's favor. The harrier knows this. The harrier is not thinking about it in the way that knowing implies deliberate cognition, but the harrier's hunting behavior is shaped by the same evolutionary pressures as the hare's escape behavior, and the harrier understands geometrically, instinctively, that the hedgerow represents a closing window. Every meter the hare covers toward that hedgerow is a meter that reduces the harrier's probability of a successful strike, and the harrier drives its wings harder, pulling in everything it has. 50 meters from the hedgerow. The hare jinks again, right to left this time, and the jink is more extreme than the first, closer to 110 degrees of turn, which means the hare is now briefly running almost parallel to the hedgerow instead of toward it. This seems like a catastrophic mistake. It seems like the hare has, for some reason, chosen to run sideways rather than toward the only available cover, and yet this is precisely correct. Because the harrier, committed to an interception course that was predicated on the hare continuing toward the hedgerow, cannot instantaneously match the 90+ degree direction change, the harrier overshoots by 15-20 meters. In the time it takes the harrier to bank, reset, and reacquire the hare's new heading, the hare has completed another jink, back toward the hedgerow but on a slightly different line, and the distance between them has opened by several critical meters. 40 meters, the harrier is reconfiguring for a second attempt and it is falling behind the geometry. The hare's third jink is small, 20 degrees, almost casual compared to the previous two, but it is timed to coincide with the harrier's bank correction, so that at the moment the harrier has resolved its flight path toward the hare's projected position, the hare is not at that position and the error in the harrier's prediction compounds. 30 meters, the harrier is close. The shadow of those broad wings passes over the hare's back, and this is a stimulus that sends a shock of pure biological terror through the hare's system, the kind of terror that has a specific neural pathway, that bypasses processing and goes directly to the motor output. Because any hare that paused to process the meaning of a raptor's shadow passing over it at close range did not survive to pass on its genes. The hare does not process the shadow. The hare responds to it. The hare crouches fractionally, lowering its center of gravity, and jinks left with everything it has. The harrier's talons close on empty air, 15 centimeters to the right of where the hare was. 15 centimeters? In 3 years of hunting, the harrier has developed an extraordinary ability to predict the movements of prey animals, and the margin between success and failure today is 15 centimeters. This is not unusual. In the interactions between a highly evolved predator and a highly evolved prey animal, margins like this are the norm. The biology on both sides has been pushed so close to its physical limits by generations of selection that the differences between them in any given encounter are measured in centimeters and milliseconds. The predator that lands its strike 50% of the time is an extraordinarily successful predator, which means the prey animal escapes 50% of the time. Neither side dominates. The equilibrium is maintained by the mutual excellence of both participants. The hare is through the hedgerow. The harrier pulls up, cannot follow through the dense hawthorn and bramble tangle, gains height on the other side to see where the hare exits. But the hare does not exit. The hare does something that harriers know well and still find frustrating, which is to stop running the moment it is in sufficient cover to freeze again, to become a statue of itself in the thick tangles of the hedgerow bottom, absolutely still, the coat now matching the browns and tans of dead leaves and bare soil perfectly, from 20 feet up. Even a harrier's eyes have difficulty picking out a motionless hare in decent cover. The harrier circles, once, twice. The hare does not move. The harrier hangs above the hedgerow for 45 seconds, which is an eternity in the attention economy of a hunting raptor, and then resumes its quartering pattern over the field. The hunt is over. This encounter has been resolved in the hare's favor by the thinnest possible margin. The hare remains frozen in the hedgerow bottom for 7 more minutes. It is not relaxed. Its heart is still running well above resting rate. Its muscles are still loaded. Its sensory systems are still on maximum alert. But the acute threat has passed and the hare's biology is beginning the long work of recovery, repaying the oxygen debt from the anaerobic sprint, clearing the lactate that has accumulated in the muscles, restoring the blood chemistry that the maximum exertion has disrupted. This recovery is not instantaneous. The hare will not be back to full sprint capacity for another 10 to 15 minutes. If a second predator were to find the hare in this hedgerow in the next several minutes, the hare's ability to respond would be compromised. This is a known vulnerability, and it is one reason why the hare does not simply resume normal activity the moment one predator has departed. The hare waits. The hare monitors. The hare is patient in the way that being a prey animal requires patience. We have been talking about the harrier, but the harrier is only one of the predators that shapes the hare's daily existence, and understanding the full scope of what the hare is managing gives a much richer picture of what it means to be a brown hare in the world. The fox is the most consistent threat, the most geographically overlapping predator in most of the hare's range, and the fox-hare relationship is ancient and finely balanced in ways that parallel the harrier-hare relationship. The fox hunts by scent as much as by sight, which changes the calculus of the hare's escape behavior significantly. Against a visual predator like the harrier, concealment in cover is a strong option once pursuit has been broken. Against a fox, scent makes concealment in cover more complex, because the hare's scent trail leads the fox to the cover, and the fox's nose can find the hare within the cover if the cover is not extensive enough. The hare's gait pattern while running at speed is itself partly an adaptation to scent hunting predators. When a hare is running at full speed, its stride pattern involves regular long leaps that clear the ground entirely, and hares have a tendency, documented by trackers and naturalists for centuries, to make occasional enormous leaps at angles to their direction of travel when they are slowing to return to cover or a form. These leaps are thought to serve partly as a way of breaking the scent trail, placing a gap in the line of scent deposits that a following fox must search around. The fox's ability to track by scent is extraordinary, but it is not perfect, and a gap in the trail created by a long leap at an angle costs the fox time and attention that the hare can use to extend its lead or reach cover. The buzzard is another aerial predator that takes hares, primarily leveraged takes of juveniles, leveraged, and the golden eagle in those parts of the hare's range where it overlaps with golden eagle habitat, is a predator of a different magnitude entirely. A golden eagle attacking a hare is a different encounter from a harrier attacking a hare, because the golden eagle combines the harrier's surprise approach with far greater speed, far greater mass, and talons that are simply not comparable to a harrier's in terms of striking power. A harrier that misses its strike has missed its prey, and the encounter is resolved. A golden eagle that comes close has the mass and the power to recover from a partial contact and attempt again in the same committed approach in a way that most smaller raptors cannot. Hares in eagle habitat tend to show behavioral modifications that reflect this more dangerous aerial predator, spending more time in areas with overhead cover, being more cautious about feeding in open areas during peak eagle activity periods. The stoat is a different kind of threat again. Stoats hunt hares by pursuit on the ground, using an absolute persistence strategy that is almost unique among European mammalian predators. The stoat is much smaller than the hare, weighing perhaps 250 grams against the hare's 3 to 5 kilograms, and in straight-line speed on flat ground the hare is faster. But the stoat's hunting strategy does not rely on matching the hare's speed. The stoat tracks by scent and sound and follows the hare's trail until the hare is exhausted. This can take a very long time. Hares pursued by stoats have been observed running themselves to complete exhaustion, unable to continue, collapsing. The stoat has been running the whole time too, but the stoat's aerobic metabolism, the proportion of oxidative to glycolytic muscle fiber, the surface area to volume ratio that allows rapid heat dissipation, these give the stoat a different endurance profile from the hare, which, as we noted, is an explosive sprint specialist with significant anaerobic dependence. The hare can go faster, the stoat can go longer. Against a pursuing stoat, the hare's best strategy is to get far enough ahead early in the chase that the scent trail goes cold before the stoat can close the gap, essentially outrunning the freshness of its own odor signature. This requires the hare to go flat out immediately and maintain high speed for long enough to put the kind of distance between itself and the stoat that the stoat's nose cannot bridge. This is energetically costly and potentially dangerous if the exhausted hare encounters a second predator before it has recovered. But the alternative, attempting to outlast a stoat over a long chase, is generally a death sentence. There is a peculiar phenomenon associated with stoat predation on hares and rabbits that is well documented but still not fully explained, which is the freezing or even apparent paralysis that prey animals sometimes exhibit when confronted by a pursuing stoat at close range. Observers have reported hares sitting motionless and apparently terrified, unable to flee, while a stoat approaches. This has been attributed variously to terror-induced paralysis, to a specific acoustic signal produced by the stoat that somehow overrides the prey's escape behavior, and to other mechanisms. What is clear is that stoats sometimes hunt in ways that involve conspicuous, almost theatrical behavior before the final approach, rolling and bounding and behaving erratically, which may function to confuse and mesmerize the prey, to hold its attention in a way that prevents escape initiation until the stoat is close enough to make escape impossible. Whether this constitutes deliberate deception or is simply an emergent feature of the interaction between two nervous systems that have been co-evolving for a very long time is a question that behavioral ecologists continue to argue about. The point is that there is no single threat and no single response. The Hare is running a continuous multivariable threat assessment protocol that identifies not just the presence of a predator but its species, its current behavior, its likely strategy, the distance between them, the available escape routes, the quality of potential cover, the Hare's own current energy reserves, and a dozen other factors. And is synthesizing all of this in real time to select the optimal response from a repertoire that spans from absolute stillness through various speeds and directions of movement to full explosive flight. This is a complex cognitive task. The Hare's brain is not a simple reflex machine. It is a sophisticated information processing system that has been specifically shaped by predation pressure to make very good decisions under conditions of extreme urgency and incomplete information. Now let us talk about the landscape itself, because the landscape is not just background, it is a participant. The brown hare exists primarily in agricultural landscapes, as we said, but it does not experience the agricultural landscape as a uniform resource. It experiences it as a patchwork of risk and opportunity that changes by the hour and the season. A field of tall, standing wheat in July is very different from the same field after harvest in August. In the tall wheat, the hare has cover that reduces aerial predation risk and allows relatively safe movement during daylight hours. After harvest, the same field becomes a flat, exposed plain with minimal cover and very high predation risk. The hare must update its mental map of the landscape's risk profile every time the farmers drive their machines through it. The hedgerows that divide fields in the traditional European agricultural landscape are not just escape routes and cover. They are corridors of connectivity that link patches of good habitat and allow hares to move through the landscape with reduced exposure. They are also food sources, providing a diversity of plant species beyond what the monoculture crop fields offer. And they are boundary features that structure the hare's mental map of its home range. Hares are not as territorially rigid as many mammals. The home ranges of different individuals overlap extensively, but individual hares do develop detailed knowledge of their local landscape that goes beyond what random exploration would produce. They know where the good cover is. They know the best escape routes from different areas of their range. They know where water is available. They know where the best food is in each season. This landscape knowledge is not innate. It is learned, and it takes time to learn, which is why young hares in their first year of life have significantly higher predation mortality than adults. The adult hare that survived today's encounter with the harrier is drawing on 18 months of detailed landscape knowledge when it selects its escape route to that hedgerow. It knows that hedgerow. It knows how thick the base vegetation is. It knows that the density is sufficient to lose a following predator in. It knows the gap in the hawthorn on the east side that it can squeeze through if it needs to exit the other way. This knowledge was acquired over time and tested under pressure, and it is one of the most important assets the hare possesses. Speed without knowledge of where to run is much less effective than speed combined with precise knowledge of the local terrain. The seasons matter enormously. Winter is the most dangerous season for hares in most of their range, not primarily because of cold, because hares are well insulated and can tolerate considerable cold without difficulty, but because winter removes the vegetative cover that reduces predation risk. Deciduous hedgerows lose their leaves. Crops are either not yet grown or have been harvested. The landscape is more exposed, more open, more legible from above, and the hare is more visible. At the same time, winter reduces the hare's food quality, requiring more time in the open foraging to meet its nutritional needs. More time in the open means more exposure. The combination of reduced cover and increased foraging time exposure makes winter mortality rates for hares significantly higher than summer rates. Spring is the season of leveret production, and the leverets, the hare's young, are themselves a study in vulnerability and adaptation. Unlike rabbits, which are born underground in burrows, naked, blind, and helpless, hare leverets are born above ground, fully furred, with eyes open and capable of limited movement within hours of birth. This is precocial development, the evolutionary response to having no burrow to protect young in. The leveret cannot rely on the protection of a hidden hole. It must therefore be born at a more advanced stage of development, capable of some self-preservation from the start. The mother hare, the doe, gives birth in the form and immediately does something that seems to the human observer shockingly callous. She leaves, she moves to a new form some distance away. The leverets are left alone in the grass. They scatter to separate small forms in the surrounding vegetation, each one going still and staying still. The mother does not stay to guard them. She does not drive away predators. She does not crouch over them. She leaves. And the reason she leaves is precisely because her presence near the leverets is more dangerous to them than her absence. A fox following the doe's scent trail would find the leverets if the doe remained near them. By moving away, she takes her scent signature and her thermal signature, both of which are much more detectable than the tiny, still, scentless leverets, away from the area where the young are lying. Scentless, or nearly so, leverets in their first weeks of life produce very little scent. This is an extraordinary adaptation.